Welcome everyone to this webinar. I would like to start by giving you a brief description of what is energy healing for all the new people. And then we'll follow that by 3 minutes of silence, because as you will see by the description, there is a value to silence. So then we'll go into the silence, and then from the silence, we'll come out with our prayer of gratitude and follow that by today's session. And the topic of today's session, I think, is a really interesting one because it's past lives, future lives, and between lives. And we may touch on some other kind of like interesting phenomenon that interface with that, like parallel lives and walk-ins and stuff like that, because it's just, there's a lot of interesting information there. Anyway, thank you for being with me for this really interesting topic, very esoteric topic. Oh, I was going to say, usually a number of questions come in via email prior to the webinar, and that didn't happen this time. It's just every once in a while that happens. You have a webinar without any big questions coming in, but that's okay. I expect that there may be some questions arising as we go along, and whether there are or whether there aren't, we have lots of great places to go. So it'll be a good ride one way or the other. Okay, so let's start with what is energy healing. Energy healing is the ability to connect awareness with the source of creation and then access the infinite resources from the source of creation to affect positive change for the body, to heal the body, to affect positive change for all areas of life, the source of creation is the healer, and it is everyone's essential nature. So when awareness fathoms the source of creation, you're really fathoming your true nature, your essential nature, your fundamental self, you could say, fundamental self. And that's beautiful. It's divine, it's eternal, it's all powerful, all-knowing. It's beautiful. And anytime the body falls ill, this amounts to some area where the connection to that source was lost. So the solution comes in layers of fullness. You know, first recognizing the problem at the surface, the symptom, as an area where that one divine source rose up to the surface and somehow just got overwhelmed by all the material and activity and functions and expressions at the surface of life. And at that moment, that overwhelm blocked the connection to the source of creation. And as soon as that connection gets blocked, the momentum behind that manifestation is also blocked. So whatever it is that manifests up to the surface that overwhelms you, as soon as you become overwhelmed, that thing is no longer fed by the infinite resources of being. It's automatically blocked. So yes, the overwhelm is there, but yes, it's not going to last forever. We're going to talk more about that tonight. And it's something that you can, that essentially spurs a move back to the source of creation. It's like a little lost lamb, right? We have some experiences like completely gripping and overwhelming. And then at that point, it's like one has no other choice but to kind of return home. And the return home is part of the healing process and integration process, purification. So we go out, the source of creation, it expresses itself out to the surface and then it returns home. It's beautiful. But at that point where it expresses out like the cue from the universe to the source of creation. So the source of creation is creating the universe, right? But the universe is talking to the source of creation also. It's like it creates this aspect, this expression of itself, but then it interacts with that expression. And so it expresses out, and then at some point, the form itself is insufficient to support that sort of momentum that's driving the manifestation of the form forward and to greater and greater levels of expression. And so the form just goes, oh, I can't take any more levels of expression. I've had enough, And so then at that point, that's the cue from the universe back to the source of creation. This form has gone as far as it wants to go. And now we need to return. It's really very compassionate system. Even though I know for you and I, as individuals, when we find ourselves in those gripping, overwhelming, challenging situations, it can feel like it's not so much compassion in this universe. Like, where's the compassion? But however, the compassion comes from the fact that the moment that one is gripped, the actual feed into that experience is also stopped. And so the next move is for the whole system to kind of return home. And the return home is back to the source of creation. I have my picture back here with the water down here representing the source of creation and the sky area up here representing the material level. So I may reference that from time to time in today's session. All right, so thank you for being with me. I hope that all made sense. And of course, we will elaborate and go more deeply into it in the next few minutes, or the next hour, within the context of the long evolution of the human soul, long evolution through time. It's really a beautiful story. Okay, so what I'd like to do next then is have a few minutes of silence. I'd like to take about 3 minutes of silence here. And the reason is that the silence, the moments of quiet are the moments when we can most easily access that silent source of creation. And because access to that is so fundamental to the healing process, it's nice to start our sessions this way. Okay, so I'll ask you to close the eyes. And after about 3 minutes, I'll ask you to open the eyes and be sure to not open the eyes too quickly. Take your time to come out of the silence, because the more we ease or gracefully come out, the more of the nuance of the subtlety of that experience we bring with us. All right, let's close our eyes. All right. Thank you. Let's gently, slowly open the eyes. Take a minute. Enjoy the silence. Sometimes the silence is so luscious. It's like, oh, who wants to ever come out of that? It's so nice. Anyway, thank you for being with me in that silence. And let's have a prayer of gratitude. Thank you to the source of creation for being the source of everything. Thank you for being the source of all of us and the whole universe and the all-important connection between the absolute unmanifest field of being and the whole manifest ocean of creation. Thank you for our hour together. May we use it in the most valuable, meaningful, efficient, useful way. Thank you to all of you for the opportunity to be the voice of this session. I gain such amazing inspiration from all of you every time we have a session like this. And I don't ever have like a really big, busy set plan of what I'm going to say. Instead, I'm cueing off of the nature of our collective intention at this time, which is very exciting for me because I often find that the webinar goes in places that I never would have expected. And it's really, really interesting. So thank you for your contributions of being here silently at your end, or, feel free to ask questions. But for the most part, the principle here is thank you for being with me. I am so grateful. I like to be of service. So it's a happy time for me. Thank you. All right, I'm ready. Past lives, future lives, and in between lives. In energy healing, well, let's start with a quote by Maharishi. Maharishi's point about the past was not to dwell on the past, because the past is always a state of lesser evolution. And what we put our attention on grows. So it's better not to spend too much time thinking about the past or dwelling on the past. That said, in my work as an energy healer, I found again and again that the seeds of suffering were often baked into experiences from the past. And as long as those experiences hadn't been sufficiently processed or integrated or even understood, right? As long as they had the experiences, those are moments of overwhelm, right? Which I talked about earlier. As long as those moments hadn't been completely processed, then the experience from those moments can bleed into the present and can show up in all sorts of strange and interesting ways. One of the most common examples are phobias. If a person dies from falling off a cliff or being bitten by a spider or something like that, then it wouldn't be at all uncommon for them to have a phobia of heights or spiders in this lifetime. The thing about hindsight is that it's 2020. And the further we get away from, the further we evolve past an experience that's been overwhelming, the broader perspective we have. And so in energy healing, the role of past lives and future lives is to broaden the perspective on various experiences. Every experience is the flow of the divine looking to evolve. Even experiences that are absolutely awful for us as individuals. Through us, through our individual experience, the divine is attempting evolution. So even if some sacrifice is being made at an individual level, at a cosmic level, something good is always happening, always. And the value of moving awareness through time is to recognize those specific evolutionary values that are kind of baked into the experience and bring them to the foreground and shine that understanding like a light into the soul of self in the past. And that's essentially how it works. But what's interesting about that is it means that one can do the same with the future, right? Awareness is so flexible. It can just move anywhere. Consciousness can move through time and space and anywhere. It's so simple. So when situations in the present are not going nicely, you do have an option to lead into the future, to find solutions, answers, and particularly perspective. So we need to talk a little bit about the mechanics of how that works and what does that mean to do that. And I'm hoping, I mean, my intention for this session is that all of you get a chance to evolve and develop your own ability to access the past and the future in a really efficient manner. So let's see how that works. As many of you are aware, I've divided up this material level of expression into various layers in order to help make a little bit more sense of it. And one of the levels that you could say about the halfway point here, well, I guess we could make it, if we include all this down here, we could put the halfway point about there. And the upper half is what you call the present life and the present self and all the aspects of oneself right here and now that we identify with who we are. So emotions and thinking and the physical body and all that. But then the deeper levels of self are not constrained by the laws of space and time the way the material level of self, and even like our thinking and feeling are also constrained by space and time. Like right here and right now, like you have a thought, like that thought's here and now with you. So, but there are more abstract levels of consciousness that are not constrained by the laws of nature of space and time. And the first layer down across that barrier is the astral body. So I identify two levels here. There's like the astral body, and then there's the causal body. The causal body is like right up next to the field of absolute being. Right. So the astral body is the level of consciousness where consciousness flows, awareness flows. You could say it's the area of ourself that's all about the flow of awareness. And for every level of yourself, there is also a corresponding field all around. So there's an astral body that has, even though I say that, well, the astral area is not constrained by space and time, there's still like a little bit of form. There's a little bit of form in this area, even though the laws of space and time are not constraining. There's still a little bit of form in this area here, astral and causal. So with the astral body, it is looking at it through the lens of the individual. There's an astral body, and looking at it through the lens of universal self, there's an astral field, or sometimes known as the web of life. Really, it just depends on the perspective. You could say, well, the astral body is nestled within the web of life. You could say it, but because of the nature of the way awareness moves, at that level of creation, it's hard to say which is inside which one's on the inside and which one's on the outside. It can be both at the same time. And I know that's a little paradoxical, but Thanks to the physicists in my world, these paradoxes don't seem so outrageous or far-fetched. Your astral body has the potential or capacity to stretch wide. If you go out to the beach and you look out across to the big horizon, the astral body just goes, shoo, just opens right up. Or you sit in your living room in front of your computer and you realize that you're sitting at the door of the universe. The astral body just opens right up. The whole universe. There's no place in the universe that our awareness cannot go. It's really beautiful. So the reason I mention this is because the astral body is the astral level of oneself is we could say the vehicle or the anchor point for connecting to all the past and future. Threads of consciousness. The whole astral field seems to show up as threads of consciousness. And I've looked at these threads, and they're eternal, they're ancient, they're older than we are. The awareness that we focus or penetrate our world with is actually ancient material. It's really an interesting thing. Like our awareness is actually in some ways older than our bodies. I know that seems counterintuitive, but anyway, this is what it looks like from this end, is that the awareness is basically the manifestation of the eternal source of creation that we have personal power and autonomy over to focus as we wish. And we focus it around here and there, everywhere we focus it. And it's a privilege to be human and to be able to do that and to explore the universe with our awareness. So through the astral body, we gain access to those threads, those expressions of consciousness that provide information on the past and the future. Everybody receives a download. There's specific threads to connect you to different specific things, obviously. And some of them connect us to archives of knowledge that are based in various parts of the universe. And some of them connect us to the journey of our souls. So let's look at the journey of the soul. We were all at the Big Bang, right? Because at the Big Bang, everything that is in our universe was there. So we were at the Big Bang. And when we were at the Big Bang, it was so, matter was so concentrated that all of us experienced, I am the whole universe. And then the universe diversified and diversified and diversified. And in those very earliest moments of the diversification process, the soul was as if it was in a sort of incubating type of place. The first forms that came forth were the fundamental three that give rise to all other forms. And we experienced ourselves as expression of those fundamental three. And those fundamental three are still deeply enmeshed, baked into every particle of creation, even though the diversification process has gone all over the place. But there is this kind of incubator time somewhere early on where the level and the quality of experience is very soft. When I look back at those earliest moments of what it was to be us, to be human, it was so soft. It was a very gentle time, really. Even though I would physically, if you look at the history of the universe, you know, from a geological perspective or something like that, it was not a very soft time. It was there's a lot of dynamism, a lot of heat, a lot of different things going on, a lot of stuff going on in the universe. But for the consciousness that we now call ourselves as humans, it was as if almost a very protected time. It looks like a protected time to me, where the cultivation of the human souls was taking place in a way that the divine was recognizing how important and how valuable all of us are. Very important. When the nervous system gets overwhelmed, the first response, and this is so old and it's so encultured into us, the first response is, oh, well, if I couldn't handle that, then I'm just not good enough. Of course, that's not true, because the nature of creation is that it's always moving to express itself further and further and further out into the field. And always the pattern is that it pushes out, and then there's a point where the universe pushes back. Like that always happens. So it's at the pushback point that there's this long enculturation within us to feel not good enough, insufficient. And the nervous system gets overwhelmed right at that point. That's the point where the nervous system gets overwhelmed. Stress accrues in the system. And we've all been through that point many, many times. Nervous systems of varying degrees of refinement get overwhelmed at different points in that process. It doesn't mean that you're not good enough or disposable or something. No. It just means that you came to a point of expression that was right at the edge of where the universe is evolving at that moment. It's a rather exciting place to be, actually. So honor yourself when you get to that point. Know that you're there because you are right in tune with the forefront of divine evolution in this creation. That pattern's so old and it's baked into the collective field just so deeply. I'm looking to see how it can be eradicated or transformed at a collective level. Because our healing collective here in the webinar is powerful. When we're together and we're doing energy healing, it's really powerful, like multiplied. To bring the perspective that you hit that wall, right? That point where some challenge arises or some difficulty arises or some health condition arises. You hit that wall because that's the point where you are at the forefront of evolution, nature's evolution, divine evolution in this world, right at that point. It's beautiful. I see it like a little whisper. The message that you didn't hit the challenge because you're bad or you're not good enough. You hit the challenge because you're right there at the forefront, and it's a very critical point, and it's a very exciting point to be. It's also kind of a field of all possibilities at that point. When you're going forward and you're kind of on a track, right? Like I'm going this way, and then all of a sudden, whoop, something has gotten me off my track. Then when you're off your track, it means that you could get onto a new track, a different track if you want at that point. There are more possibilities that open up than just at that point of the process where you're just kind of chugging along, going forward, and everything is as expected. All possibilities open up at that moment. And the presence of all possibilities is an expression of your essential nature. It's not that at that point, it's not that you need to necessarily try to get onto a new track. Maybe the one you were on was very good, but that you have a moment when you experience that you could go anywhere. You could be anything. That's what these experiences bring. It is the compassion in the hearts of all of us in this group that is the carrier for the message to go to the collective consciousness. And I'm reminded, as in past webinars, that the compassion can rise up, literally up, into the stratosphere, into the ionosphere. Tom, do you remember where the Schumann resonance is?
Oh, ionosphere.
Ionosphere, that's what I thought. Thank you. My husband's helping me. The ionosphere, or the Schumann resonances, acts like a kind of cosmic internet, connects us all. There's this hum going on around the skin or the outside of the earth, at the edge of our edge of our atmosphere around the planet. And that hum is it's a form, it's a resonation that connects all of us. And so when our collective compassion, really with such a deep desire to help everybody navigate their way through the types of challenges that we all experience, right? The challenges that are inevitable in the human condition. It hums and resonates. It's carried by that frequency. It's carried by that resonance. And it quietly speaks to the hearts of everyone. It's a message, not just of all possibilities, but all possibilities integrated into the silent gaps that are basic to everyone's experience. Gaps between breaths, gaps between thoughts, gaps between states of consciousness. It's all there for everyone. It doesn't matter how spiritual they are or non-spiritual or whatever. But those gaps hold the key to successful navigation of those challenging experiences. And part of the story is to take that moment when the challenge is there, and rather than spend it feeling like you're not good enough, leverage the reality, which is that at that moment, you're really connected right up with the source of creation. And the evolution of the source of creation and your evolution are like hand in hand. That's what's really happening. I know it can be hard, especially if there's a lot of pain, right? It can be a little overwhelming if the system becomes overwhelmed. But even if the system is overwhelmed in the moment, it rises up. Nothing stays the same. And this brings me back. I think I got a little bit off track of past lives. So let's come back. Not that this isn't related, because it's all very nicely related. But tonight I was looking at the field of all lives. Remember I was saying, oh, well, let's look at the story of the evolution of the soul, right? And so I was looking at this field of all lives. And, there was that kind of incubation period at the beginning, and then there was more diversification. And, I see the diversification very much like the way branches grow off of a tree, that we started close to, in clusters or groups with people. And then as the diversification occurs, we find ourselves like family members. And I would refer to soul family members like that and so forth, and just keeps diversifying off. As long as the universe wants to do it, and as long as the form is able to sustain that intention. That means the form has to keep refining, because only the more refined form can sustain the greater field of diversity. So physiologically, we keep refining our bodies, our nervous systems, our habits, our thinking. Anyway, I was looking at this long course of human life on Earth, and I saw something that looked like a kind of churning that was riding through time. So it's kind of like a churning through time. And what happens is, like, in the beginning, there were, like, a long time ago, those of us who are humans on Earth, like 100,000 years ago, or 500,000 years ago, or something like that. Those lifetimes, those experiences of those lifetimes always would hit a point where the physiology got overwhelmed. And if it wasn't possible to deal with the overwhelm within that lifetime, then successive lifetimes occur. And from the successive lifetimes, one is able to go back and sort of reevaluate and process and work with whatever experiences of the previous lifetime were overwhelming. So what that means is that the experiences of your and my very early human lifetimes have been well covered. They're pretty good at this point, because, you know, if one is living a life, say 100,000 years ago, and goes through some difficult, maybe a difficult childbirth or something, you know, something that's overwhelming, that experience has been well processed in successive lives. And it brings up the point that what we think is chronological lifetimes actually isn't. When I was thinking about that today, I realized someone had sent in a question, but I don't think she's with us. Oh yeah, she'll be with us in the recording, about parallel lives. And I emailed her back and I said, you know, I haven't at this point found any really concrete evidence for parallel lives, because consciousness occupies a nervous system, and it is the integration of the consciousness with that particular nervous system that supports the evolutionary process for the consciousness. So it doesn't make sense for consciousness to try to occupy multiple physiologies at the same time, because what it means is that consciousness would then just be diluting itself across multiple physiologies, and the net result would be no evolution. But then it occurred to me, so that was the answer I gave her in the email, or something like that. But then it occurred to me that the timing of the birth is based on a specific alignment between the heart's deepest desire for the course of that lifetime with the intentions of the divine to do its evolution at any given time and space. So, for instance, a soul could come into this particular time in history where you could say, well, you know, it's a pretty refined time in history compared to previous, because we have like electricity and flush toilets, and you just go to the grocery store and you buy food. It's very, very easy way to live compared to our ancestors, right? So, but the soul could be that particular soul has its evolutionary story that fits in with this particular lifetime that may actually not be so refined. It may not be so refined. And it could be that the same soul later on in its own evolutionary process finds that coming back, say, somewhere in like the Middle Ages or something like that, that soul is able to fulfill its more refined experience at an earlier time that the time itself may have been a little cruder, but the circumstances, the people, all the little factors that work together were able to support that soul. Like, you know, someone like St. Francis, you know, that soul that was St. Francis went through so many lifetimes that were more crude and not so refined, not so spiritual. But then at one point, St. Francis came to be in his lifetime of being a very, very refined, very spiritual person who changed the course of the church to a large degree and was a phenomenon and able to fly and all kinds of beautiful things. So it was functioning as a very, very enlightened soul, in other words, at a time that wasn't so refined. So what it means is that the soul, okay, a person dies and the soul dips into the source of creation. And here we talk a little bit about what happens between lives, right? It dips into the soul source of creation and takes deep rest. And from the perspective of the deep rest, it becomes very clear what lessons need to be learned, what evolution needs to take place next. And then the soul comes out of that silence, that deep rest, with the intention to fulfill the needs, their personal evolutionary needs. There are a lot of other things that happen there too, and I need to tell you about them. But let's just finish this one thought, and then we can go there. And those evolutionary needs can be fulfilled at any time in history. So it's not as if the course of lifetimes follows what we would think of as a linear progression of time, like my last past lifetime would have been sometime in the last century. It doesn't happen like that. My last past lifetime could have been thousands of years ago. You could have had a recent past life, like maybe your last past life, where you were like a follower of Christ or something, and before that, the lifetime before that was like during the French Revolution and really rough, so it's, in other words, it doesn't follow the chronological timelines that we think of in this field, which are constrained by our nervous systems, because you don't have a nervous system. And so based on that, let us take a minute and look at what happens on the in-between. The soul passes out of the body. The first thing is the great deep silence, and is that beautiful merging with the source of creation. And a soul can stay there a long time. It's just like us when we took our 3 minutes of silence at the beginning. I said, okay, we can open the eyes. And I sat there with my eyes closed going, oh, do I ever have to open my eyes again? It's just so lovely in that silence. So one stays until one has drunk one's fill of that silence, until one has remembered what they are really made of, who and what they really are. And then the soul, without a body, goes through a period, I would say, of grace. Because, of course, did I mention most people have this, and I just know this from people with near-death experiences. And so there's a life review. There's a life review on the way in, right? But then after the things that were more or less familiar, the tunnel of light and the life review and all that, then it's the deep silence. You could say it's a time of grace. And I really have been thinking of it like that, especially in the last few days and weeks, because the truth is that living a human existence is seriously not easy. I have so much respect for all of us, for you, for me, for everybody, that we're here. It's just so phenomenal that we're here. Really, that the creator, the chance. I've been saying this all week. I can't even remember who I was saying to, but probably in some private consultations or something. But when you think that when a female child is born, she has about 2 million eggs in each of her ovaries. As a tiny, tiny infant child has a total of about 4 million eggs in her body. And of those, like, how many actually becomes a person? Some women never have children. And the ones that do, like maybe a handful at the most. There are those women on earth, I guess, at this time who are having up to like 10 or something, but 10 is nothing compared to 4 million, right? That's nothing. The chance of your existence here, the chance of it being you, is just phenomenal. It's just phenomenal. And It's seriously not easy. And we know that when we're coming into this world. And that idea is actually exciting. Like, it's like, really? But yeah, it seems that when a soul is coming to be in the human form and coming into the human world, there's such an incredibly intense sense of excitement to come and to have the opportunity and the chance to be here, knowing that it is profoundly difficult. I see the shortness of the human life as the compassion of the Creator here on earth, because it really is rather a go. And having the freedom to not have to stay, like, there are times in history where people live in such softer conditions, and it's like completely a pleasure to live for like 3,500 years. Like, there are records of times when people could live like long periods, and it was really easy because the overwhelm that one experienced was virtually non-existent. The way the laws of nature are structured at those other times don't give rise to this feeling of just like, oh my gosh, I've reached my limit again. Oh my gosh, I've reached my limit again. Right? Instead, it's just like one gracefully glides from one experience to another, and it's like, oh, you do this for 35,000 years, 3,500 years, no problem. 3,500, 35,000. Sorry, they're records anyway, old records, and I mean, they're people. They're people. Babaji has been around. There are records of Babaji being around 2,000 years ago, and he's still around. There's still records of him being around. So, I mean, you know, it does happen. It does happen when the being and the system and the body are refined enough. But the point is that one goes into a time of grace where, without the physical body and the constraints and limitations of the physical body, life can be experienced in a rather gentle way. And of course, there are realms in the spirit world. There are realms, and where a soul ends up within those realms is very much a reflection of the level of consciousness of that soul. Some realms are more heavenly than others. But most people, most souls, will choose to take some time in the spirit world and just enjoy living. Just enjoy living without any aches or pains. Enjoy living without any major life-shattering challenges coming and knocking on the door. You know, just living gently, just living in a gentle way. And I feel that this is the compassion of the Creator, because living right now in a human body is seriously challenging. This world, you guys, this world, oof. I don't need to go into detail because you know. And it's nice to know. I think a lot of people, the moment of death is, according to Vedic science, is determined by the moment when the karma that one is facing overwhelms the physiology to such a degree that the physiology can no longer sustain itself. And that's not based on like projects that you have left unfinished or desires that you wanted to accomplish that you didn't get to accomplish. That's just, it's kind of like a simple mechanical thing. And so I think that for a lot of people, that time of grace in the spirit world is a time when projects can be finished and desires can be fulfilled. And it really is a rather gentle time. But like the times in human history when people were able to live, you know, tens of thousands of years, it's not like the evolution is really as satisfying, right? In order to have that satisfying level of evolution, the experience needs to come all the way up to the physical material level. So in the time of grace, in the spirit world, and I would just like to add a little point here. There's a man named Jürgen Ziwe, and he has done a lot of exploration and traveling through these realms. And he has really elaborate, amazing descriptions of them. And oh, this is comfy. If I lean back, what can I do this? Oh, how about that? Hello, you can see my whole necklace. Can you still hear me though? Is the sound still okay? Because the microphone's further away. Okay, great, good. This is actually a better distance, I think. Anyway, yeah, he spent so much time traveling and celebrating and working in those realms. And he's also an artist, and he has lovely artwork on YouTube, I would like to add. And his artwork on YouTube is absolutely inspired by his travels. So I recommend that you check that out, because it really is something delightful. It's delightful for the senses. If you love art, if you love visual images, you will love his work, I assure you. But meanwhile, we all have our experiences of those realms, and they absolutely run in a progression from places that are rather dark and unwelcoming to places that are absolutely glorious. But regardless of how comfortable or uncomfortable one is at that time, in that period, eventually the soul is just driven to come back. As in near-death experiences, when the soul crosses the veil and then they bump into some like grandparent or something, and the grandparent says, you need to go back, right? It's the same thing when you need to come here. You know, the soul is in this, especially if this lifetime was a lifetime of integrity and virtue and, you know, good behavior, right action aligned with natural law, good evolution, that kind of thing, then in the spirit world, it can be quite comfortable. But at some point or another, the grandparent comes and goes, you need to go back, you know, something like that. And so, or some expression of universal intelligence shows up and says, by the way, this is important. And then the soul starts to go through a process of exploring what that's going to look like, right? Breaking it down and thinking through like, okay, what are the main life lessons, and where are my loved ones, and, you know, how shall I navigate this experience, and what will I be? Who will I be? And so, and that period can often be marked by experiences that seem like school, moments that seem like, you know, where there are people there to kind of guide, souls to guide and help support the decision-making process and provide access to different possibilities. And so, and of course, we carry a lot of those energies with us into this lifetime. Like when you're in the spirit world and you're experiencing, like, say, going to a school and meeting with teachers and guides and stuff like that, actually those forms of consciousness are expressions of yourself. And in this world, you still carry them with you, including the karmic board, who are literally an expression or an elaboration of an area of the causal body. That the karmic board is the part of consciousness where we interact with where we understand how our soul interacts with the laws of nature and the laws of karma. And it's determined like what types of karmas and how we're going to interact with those karmas and so forth in the physical world. And because those aspects of ourself remain with us in this lifetime as expressions of us, of our nature down here, kind of abstract expressions of our nature, it's possible to renegotiate. And it's so common for people in the spirit world to look to this world and go, they're in the spirit world and they feel great, right? They're not constrained by their body. So they think, oh, I can take on a lot. Like, this is easy. I'm here. Life is bliss, let's just do it. Let's just go for it. I'm going to like burn off as much karma as I possibly can in this next lifetime. I'm going to really go for it, And then they get in here and they're like, oh my God, oh, did I really want to do this? Did I really want to be born into a family of like terrible people who are going to abuse me my entire childhood? I don't know. So it's possible to renegotiate. But as a tiny child, that's not so commonly, that possibility isn't always so commonly understood unless the soul is really evolved. Then they can come in even as a tiny child and be extremely, extremely clear, extremely aware, and they can renegotiate their karma if they need to. I wish that for all of you. If you make that mistake of thinking you're just going to burn off all the karma in some lifetime, the story is that many years ago, I was laying on my couch after I had been meditating and I was just resting. And I had the thought, hey, I know, because I was doing energy healing, right? It's like, hey, I know, I'm just going to get rid of all the anger, like all the anger. Like, I'm going to go through the entire span of all the lifetimes I've ever lived. And I'm just going to dissolve and resolve all the anger, all of it. And so I settled my awareness in the source of creation. And I was like, okay, what do we need to do to just get rid of all the anger? And the wave came out. And as it came out, the pain in my back, which had been feeling fine, my back had felt fine before that. The pain in my back became so unbearably overwhelming that I was paralyzed. I came out of that. I was literally paralyzed. I was able to call for my dear husband. And I said, I can't move. Something's wrong. I made a mistake. So you don't have to make the same mistakes because you can learn from my mistakes. But yeah, so I'm laying on the couch, and like a minute earlier, I felt fine. There was no pain anywhere in my body. I was fine. But anyway, yeah, paralyzed with pain, literally paralyzed. And the whole back, all the way from the top to the bottom, was a phenomenal experience. One of those experiences you don't forget. Anyway, luckily, I had a dear friend at the time who was doing a lot of energy healing with me, and he was, bless his heart, he was practically on call. And my husband called him, and he came, and I could still speak, and I could like move my eyes. And so he came over, and he just sat with me until we worked it out, and I undid the mistake I had done, and it was better. And I realized at that point that that's not a good idea to just try to get rid of all your anger in one shot or all your karma in one shot. And the reason is, and I know this next point I'm going to make doesn't exactly have to do with past lives, but I think it's just such an important point that I want to share it with you. The reason is that when something in this universe finds expression, and that something is not nice, it doesn't mean that the solution is to utterly destroy it or utterly get rid of it. That's not the way nature works. Nature doesn't work like that. What nature does is it brings a level of compassion great enough to meet the level of suffering. The compassion meets the suffering. And when that happens, the experience, the overwhelming experience, is provided a context to transform. It transforms. The example I've been using all week are the dinosaurs. Oh, they were terribly scary things, weren't they? Aren't you glad that we don't live in a world with dinosaurs right now? You could say, and for years, of course, for a long time, humans thought, well, at one point there are these big, extremely fearsome, monstrous beings on the earth, but obviously they all got destroyed. Well, they didn't. They're still with us in the form of birds. The birds of today are the dinosaurs of 500 million years ago. Compassion, a great compassion, came. It rose up and it met you could say the crudeness of those forms. Those forms were more crude, so they weren't able to sustain in that form, in that way. But the forms were able to refine and eventually become these absolutely lovely creatures that we get to live with in this lifetime, in this world. It's very amazing. So even dinosaurs, you think, oh, they were so terribly frightening and terrifying. Even they didn't really just get utterly destroyed, but they did get transformed. And they got transformed by a level of compassion that could go to the level, that could go to such a degree of refinement that you could get a little bird out of that. Because birds are the most delicate things, aren't they? Just so light and sweet. It's interesting. So it's the same with the big scary dragons within ourselves that we face, that it's not so much a matter of saying, well, I have this, say I've got some habit that I don't like, maybe an eating habit or a smoking habit or something. I have some habit that I don't like, and I just have to just destroy it, just get rid of it completely. Because with an eating habit, that's like anorexia, right? You think, well, I don't like the way I'm eating, so I'm just not going to eat, just no more eating. And that's just as bad, right? That the principle is that when it's something that's not good, instead of meeting with I'm just going to, meeting it with compassion. And that doesn't mean being weak or a pushover or something. Maybe the situation is a little child who's in an abusive situation, right? So you say, well, should the child meet that situation with compassion? There are a lot of things that can be said about a situation like that. And one of them is that nature brings a child into that particular situation in order to make that particular soul very, very spiritual. Because any child, as we've talked about in the past, who grows up in a very dangerous, very painful environment, an environment that they can't trust, it drives them inward to find their solace, to find their comforts inside themselves. And these people always come out to be very spiritual people. But in the same stroke, the child does not have resources to break away from an abusive situation. No child really has, if somebody's being abused and they're old enough to have a job and a car and an income, they can just go away. But a child can't. And so the compassion that comes for a child has to come through their environment. And everything that comes through the environment to you or to me or to a child who's being abused is responding to something that's like a magnet inside the heart. In our hearts, there are layers and layers and layers of feelings. And a child who's being abused doesn't know any better. Excuse me, I have to take a drink. Oh, yeah, better. A child who's being abused doesn't know anything else. They don't know that what's happening to them is not appropriate. So, so the child can often have tremendous compassion, like the Stockholm principle. They can often have tremendous compassion for their abusers. And that compassion acts as a kind of a magnet, ideally to bring someone from the, or some level of expression of compassion from the environment to help provide opportunities for that child to move into a safer space. Sorry, let's try the water over here. That was tea. All right, that's a little better again. Anyway, I'm looking at our clock and I see we're really close to the end of the meeting. I didn't really look, I didn't look at any questions. Oh, okay, this is a good question. At the time of the Big Bang, were there a finite number of souls? The story of the entire unfolding of the universe and then its entire collapse back was already contained at the moment of the Big Bang. So you could say, I would say yes, but also when we say souls, we have to specify, does that mean human souls or all kinds of beings? Because there's so many layers of beings that reside down at the subtler levels of creation, right? Like all the people in the spirit world, they're hanging out down here. It's such an interesting question. I feel that at the moment of the Big Bang, all possibilities were present. And so it wasn't that there was a finite number of souls per se, although the path forward was set at the moment of the emergence from the source of creation. Already it's like that was a seed. So the seed is only going to grow a certain type of tree. And so there was an element of things already being set, but there was also built into the system a play of infinity, so that, the tree, like a coconut, is only going to make a coconut tree. But when the coconut tree is real little and it's just still starting to grow, depending on weather conditions and the environment, and so that coconut tree could grow really big and robust and tall, or it could just wither and be just a little dumpy coconut tree. So it was like that at the outset, all possibilities were still there for a number of souls. All possibilities were still there, even though the essential course of the universe was already set. That's a really interesting question. Thank you. Can you explain that a little more? Thanks. When we hit a wall, we are at the point of all possibilities. Yes. Yes, I realize that sounds counterintuitive, doesn't it? It's like you think, oh, I'm growing and I'm expanding and life is bliss and life is moving forward. And so that feels like all possibilities. And then when you hit a wall, it feels like, oh, wait a minute, my possibilities have been blocked off from me. But the thing about the wall is that it shows up when the nervous system has reached its limit, when the physical structure has reached its limit. And just like a dinosaur, when the physical structure reaches its limit, that means that that particular physical structure, and it could be just like part of the nervous system or your whole physical body or whatever, it becomes set on the path of refinement at that moment. The minute you hit a wall, the minute the system becomes overwhelmed, then the only place to move, the only direction to move, is essentially back to the source of creation and back into an expression of refinement. And that the nervous system was crude enough that when you got to a certain level of expression, the nervous system is like, I just can't go further. This is like really, it's like my senses of perception are just, full on, can't take it anymore. And then so the system goes, okay, in order to move forward, I have to refine. And so there's kind of like an inward stroke that occurs. And with the inward stroke is the sleep at night, right? So we do this every night when we sleep. There's this opportunity to rejuvenate and refresh and refine. And then the next day we come out and it's like, okay, I can face the world again. It's such a world. It's such a world. And all of it is an expression of the absolute. Here's a question. There's a lot of illness around this season. Yes, there is. There is here also in Fairfield. Could we please do a collective healing for wellness this holiday season? Oh, that's such a lovely thought. Let's do that. I'm a big follower of the news on both sides of the political spectrum. So I see both sides being fairly accurate in reporting the illnesses that our world is facing. This has very much to do with changes in the microbial structure of our world, changes in our world at a microbial level. So as I go into this, my own silence to look to how this healing would work, the first thing that I bump into again, which is why I absolutely adore being with you, is the just astounding level of compassion of our healing group. It's really sweet. And that compassion opens up to the microbial level of our world. Our interaction as humans with our world has been impressively exploitative for a really long time. And I think the last few years are no exception. And what, as humans, what we've done in the world of viruses and bacterias has not been done with compassion. It's been done from a level of curiosity and a desire to know better, to control better, subtle this area of our world, of our creation. But when I look at the scientific community, I don't see any genuine love for the viruses and the bacteria of this earth, or even other types of other forms. There's not. Who will love them? Who will care enough to say, I recognize and honor you for what you bring to this world? And the viruses, for example, bring a tremendous amount of value to our bodies and to our consciousness. There was a flu that came through, it was a week ago. It was really quick. I had it between two public events. So I started a public event in the evening and I'm like feeling the symptoms, right? And they were intense enough. I actually had to tell the people I was meeting with, like, I might need to get up and throw up pretty quick here. But it only lasted from there to the next day when I had the same event again the next day in like the morning. That was it. It was like less than 24 hours. So I was, thank God, fully functional. And I remember when the virus came into the house, I thought, should I not take this in or should I take this in? And it wasn't like a sort of conscious choice. It was like a gut reaction. I need this. I need whatever this thing has, I need it. And so I just let it be in me for those, I don't know, 14 hours or something like that, whatever it was. And it opened up a level of flexibility. It opened my consciousness to an understanding of how it can move that was extremely sophisticated regarding expansion and contraction at the same time, in varying degrees, in varying locations. And it was fascinating to see how that virus came in, it wreaked its havoc, and then it left me with a gift. And of course, part of that gift was new DNA. And the beauty of the new DNA that comes in from a virus is that it doesn't come in with any agendas. It doesn't come in, for example, the DNA that's in our bodies right now is subject to the epigenome, right? So there are some proteins that'll go turn this part of the DNA off and turn that other part on and so like that. But when you get some new viral DNA, it doesn't have any like turn on and off switches attached to it yet. It's just like the raw thing. It's the raw deal. And there's a kind of freshness in that. It comes in like sort of unencumbered by the weight of beliefs and conditioning from the past, because the epigenome, the ionized proteins that turn the DNA on and off, all that stuff, those are inherited. So it comes in without all that inherited baggage, you could say. I don't know. I doubt that the virologists of our world look upon viruses that way. But this is just coming from direct experience. We've all had illnesses throughout the course of our life. And it's as if the pain and suffering that you go through with the flu or the cold or something is sort of like a little personal sacrifice or gift that you give to, it's like, I would say like a kind of purification or an offering, something like that, in order to be worthy of the gift of wisdom and expanded capacity to experience reality that you get from the virus. So on the basis of that level of understanding, from that perspective, our lovely healing collective, our powerful healing collective, can reflect to the microbial level of our world how profoundly precious it is. We can give to the microbial level of our world. Again, you know, if we resonate it up to the Schumann resonance, right, and come back, or just direct, just straight up in your home, in the world around you. This level of our world is absolutely priceless. And I'm just feeling the compassion and love, just massaging the field of consciousness that is the microbes of our world. It's just like anything living in your world. If you love it, it will do better, right? If you treat your dog real nice, you get a nice dog who doesn't bite people, right? It's the same with the microbes. Was I not treating the microbes nicely enough? Well, maybe I was. There was a little karma in there for sure. And thanks to the my own experiences with the recent flu, yeah, I came to understand something about myself and my own nature and my own current situation, which I would not have otherwise understood. And I really needed that understanding. So it was such a gift. And our bodies are designed to weather these experiences. So may that sweetness and love, I'm just watching it kind of moving into the microbial level of creation and the microbes of the world going, oh, finally, somebody sees me for who I really am. That's so nice. I always wanted to be seen for who I am. And what's happening is the love is becoming very, 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 very fine. So right here, you start feeling like, oh yes, I can send some love to the microbes of the world. Why not? You know, and then it becomes very, 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 very fine. It becomes so fine. Doesn't even feel like love anymore. It just is. You know it's love because it started out there, right? But it's just so fine. It's so simple, is that it's essentially almost without quality, like just an impulse of being. At that level, the microbes totally get it. They're like, oh, now you're talking our language. So small beings, right? So small, fine beings. Negotiations are taking place. The microbial level of creation, loved and recognized, and interacting at such a fine level of consciousness. The negotiation is there. The appeal from our side is there. What are the chances of taking it a little easy on us this holiday season? And the answer back is that, well, they're responding very much to karma, because they're the vehicles for people to get their karma. And so some decisions need to be made on a case-by-case basis. And we just keep kind of pouring in the love. We're just pouring in the love, going, like maybe a more gentle pace. Is there, I think this is a good question. Is it possible for the karma to come a little more gently? Or it's not that people avoid it. Everybody has to face eventually, but just with a little more gentleness, a little more grace. I'm literally hearing the microbial level of the world say, have mercy upon us. Have mercy upon us. We have been exploited. They wanted mercy too. So love and mercy. And when I feel the mercy coming to the microbial level of the world, I feel it coming from a level of our own beings that's extremely cosmic, like the mother divine of creation through each of our hearts, that level of mercy. To all the people of the world. That level of mercy doesn't just touch the microbes of the world, it touches everything, all the animals and all the people. Mercy this holiday season for all the souls and all the beings that reside together in this amazing web of life that is our world. We're using the web of life itself, the structure of the web of life, to be the conduit for that mercy to perpetuate itself through the field of life. That's just happening. And as that happens, I see the web of life just becoming, it looks like lighter and simpler. And I see how the karma is like wanting to sort of cluster up into bunches, like bunch up or cluster up in certain places in the web of life, certain places where people just can't avoid. They're not going to avoid their karma this holiday season. But the mercy continues. And it's sort of propagating into those areas where the clumping is. We were talking about the karmic board, right? Within each of us. The karmic board one can make an appeal to the karmic board. There's a lot of compassion in that part of oneself. There has to be, because karma is so, can be so difficult that like it has to be balanced. So the compassion is there. And as the compassion moves into those pockets of karma, it's almost like it produces a kind of heat in those pockets, they become very kind of active and lively. And it's like there's almost a kind of some kind of war going on, or some kind of a churning going on in those pockets where the compassion and the mercy are there, but also the karma is there, and the karma really wants to work itself out and do its thing, you know. And the eliminating the illusion, the false belief that if the compassion and mercy are there, the karma won't work out, which is just not true. People can still work out their karma, even if it's not like hideously painful. This little intention is going into the hearts of people who are tied up with those pockets, to sincerely long for their evolution, sincerely desire evolution, because that one desire is a tremendous saving grace in the light of challenges that will come a person's way. So this is a shift that's taking place at a sort of worldwide level for those individuals who are sort of predestined, you could say, to undergo some kind of really awful experiences this holiday season. That it's like being seeded with a genuine desire to go for the highest. Wouldn't that be the most beautiful holiday gift for everybody, to have the individuals in the society who care least about spiritual development to turn around and to really care the most? That would be amazing. Is it possible for them to care the most? No. Is it possible for them to care at all, at least some? Yes. Enough that they don't go through as much suffering, so they don't become the harbingers for like terrible mutations and manifestations of illnesses. Something like a cloak of mercy and compassion is settling into the web of life. And it's just supporting, to whatever degree any individual nervous system can handle the desire to evolve in the highest without being overwhelmed. That's happening for everyone. Just, it's such a lovely, such a sweet gift to give to the whole world this holiday season. The gift of aiming for the highest. That's really beautiful. Thank you for that question. Aw. Thank you everyone for being with me tonight. And tomorrow we will look at all of these, the questions that I didn't answer tonight. And I look forward to being with you and hopefully doing more healings for everybody. That's my intention. After kind of laying down all the basic principles and so forth, we didn't talk much about future lives, for example. And also really I want to go more deeply into the mechanics of how energy healing leverages access to past and future lives, and make sure that there's the healings for everybody so that you are completely capable of accessing past and future lives, so you can do it yourself. And then how that process works. What are the mechanics of how accessing that level of one's own consciousness allows you to really heal the present. All right. So thank you everyone for being with me. It's such a pleasure always. I look forward to seeing you all soon. Bye.